Finding your art style is nothing more than learning how to screw up your paintings or drawings in your own unique way. And so, in other words, you shouldn't really take it too seriously. You shouldn't really put too much pressure on yourself, because whatever style you develop will be proven wrong by other artists in the next generation. In other words, there is no correct art style, only a temporary one. In this video, we'll be covering everything that you need to know to develop your art style, as well as discuss whether or not you need an art style in the first place and how your art style will change over time throughout your art career. And as you already know, because you understand the concept of YouTube, this video is completely free and will not cost you anything. Except for pressing the like button, because that helps out a lot with the algorithm. And it also celebrates our favorite color as artists, namely like button blue. So thanks a lot. So let's dive in right away. The first thing that I notice is that a lot of young artists feel insecure about their art style or not having an art style. And why is that? Because they can look around on social media or other artists, other classmates, whatever, and they see that a lot of artists have already found their art style and sharing it on social media. And so that's a lot of pressure, because you don't have your art style yet, or not completely yet. And some of these artists that already have their art style are even younger than you. And so that's even more pressure. Now, in that sense, finding your art style or dealing with that is probably harder now than it was 20 years ago, because back in the days we didn't really have to deal with any of those things. Luckily, finding your art style is actually very easy, and there's a process that you can follow that basically guarantees you to find your art style at some point in your career. And just like with anything in life, when you're learning something new, you have to learn from the best. You have to learn from the best. And so let's do that. If we look at all the great artists from the past, we see the same process over and over and over again. The first step is copying masters, is copying the work literally, or almost literally, kind of a little bit in your own whatever chisels, from other artists. As you can see in the images here, those are all masterpieces that are being repainted by painters who then also become masters in their time. And so this is a very important step. Why? Because while doing so, you also bring your art in line with art history. And this is something that critics and curators and all of those people generally like a lot. And so what you want to do is draw art or paint art from other arts that you really like in that first step. You can do that very literally, very direct, and kind of exactly the same like in this one, for example. This is a painting that I made 15 years ago. This is Matisse, and it's kind of exactly the same as Matisse, or very similar. And you can also do that in a very, in a more artistic, more unique, more original way. For example, in this drawing, you see me drawing an exact replica of Van Gogh. Now, if you know something about Van Gogh's drawings, he used to draw a lot of working class type of people who are working in the farms, in the fields, all of that stuff. And they have that traditional working class type of face. And I drew that with a Burger King hat on. And so it's kind of the 21st century version of an old Van Gogh drawing. You know, that's kind of giving it your original touch. Or in this drawing, for example, this is another one, an old master drawing that I recreated, and I put some McDonald's food in there and kind of giving it that 21st century touch. And so that is something that you can play around with. You can just copy literally, no problem with that. Or you can give it your own twist if copying too literal is a little bit boring, which is understandable. Now, in this process, most artists feel like a fraud, feel like some kind of liar, because you're copying somebody else's work. You're kind of not being creative or original or anything that an artist should be. And that is completely understandable. I personally also had that feeling. And there are several solutions to that feeling. The first one is to understand that the things that you like about an artist, the things that you adore, already reflect something of your personality, already express something of your personality. Somebody else will like different stuff of that same artist. And so this is already fairly unique. Then on top of that, another solution that you can use is to copy the work of a lot of artists, because the larger the variety of artists that you copy from, the more unrecognizable your style will become from theirs. And so these are kind of the two things that you have to take into account. Now, another thing, and this is also very important, is that you should not really only copy artists. A lot of artists think that that is kind of the only thing that you can do. That's not true at all. Like, for example, in these series of artworks, I developed a painting method, a way to paint with an electrostatic discharge simulator simulating 30,000 volts. It's kind of basically painting with lightning. Now this is hugely inspired by science. I wasn't copying artists there. I was copying science, literally copying sections out of science books. And so this is also possible. You don't have to copy artists. You can copy from any field that humanity is doing stuff in, basically. When trying to find your art style, you stumble upon a lot of different recommendations, a lot of different, like, quotes even. Good artists borrow, great artists steal, you have to steal like an artist, stuff like that. And basically what all those recommendations are saying is that you have to look at arts that you like and then figure out how to transform that into your own style. And what most beginner artists don't really know is what that means. What it means to transform something into your own style. And so let me explain what that means. It means that you have to make art. I know that sounds very cheap, but it really is that simple. You'd find your art style in the process of making art, not in the process of thinking about making art. Most artists are thinking about how to make art or how to make the art that they have in their heads. Now the truth is that you're not going to find your art style by thinking. At some point you have to trust that you have enough creativity, enough originality, just like all human beings, and that you will find your art style if you make enough art. Another thing that I want to mention is that you shouldn't really be worried about your skill level as an artist, because the truth is that the skill of making art actually doesn't really matter that much in the art world. I think it was John Baldessari who said that his biggest secret was that he cannot draw. And if you look at a lot of the contemporary artists nowadays, they have studio assistants who are making the art while they are focusing on marketing, selling, and networking. As a matter of fact, if you look at the best artists of our time, you see that the amount of art that you will sell and the price points that you will sell at actually have more to do with the amount of people that work for you than the quality of your art. Here's a little example, a little equation that I made for you where you can see that the amount of high-ticket art that you will sell equals a good ID, the material cost plus your ego multiplied by the amount of people that will work for you to the power of the amount of oligarchs and hedge fund managers that you know. Now, in this equation, you already see that when you are not able to make art, when your skill level as an artist is actually not that high, that your prices will be way higher because you will be more inclined to hire people to work for you, which is kind of one of the price validation mechanisms in the art world at this moment. One of the best tips for finding your art style actually doesn't come from me, it comes from today's sponsor liking this video, which is something you should be doing because your likes are the reason why this is an ad-free experience and also the reason why you don't have to listen to some 2-minute canned boring sponsor message, which is kind of wasting 2 minutes of your life. So thanks a lot for your like. Let's go further. Let's also talk about finding or searching for people who can critique your art in order to develop your art style, because a lot of people believe that that is necessary, that you need people to critique your work in order to grow and develop an art style. And I totally understand this. This is completely normal, especially because in the academic world, we value critics. We deem them as an essential part of the art industry. And so naturally people, after going through that academic system, will think that critique is very important for your work. But here's the thing, and this kind of blew my mind, so follow me here for a moment. As you might know, because I've mentioned it before on this channel, I have had a lot of exhibitions in museums and galleries worldwide, where I met a lot of art people. On top of that, I also go to a lot of shows and openings where I meet even more art people. And on top of that, I studied in high school art stuff and in university art stuff where I met a lot of art people. In other words, I know a lot of art people. Now here's the thing. How many art friends do I have that I see on a regular basis that critique my work in order to help me develop my artistic style? Zero. Nobody. I have art acquaintances, but I don't really have art friends that I see on a weekly basis that we talk art with or something like that. And that is completely fine. That is okay. You don't need You don't need an art community of friends critiquing your work to develop your style or to be a serious artist for that matter. Those things are overrated by the art society at this moment. Most artists who are listening to critique in order to improve their art and improve their art and improve their art, they are broke artists that you shouldn't really listen to anyway. I remember myself 10, 20 years ago thinking about where I would be 20 years later, and I thought about me gathering with people, philosophers and art people and famous people of our time, thinking all together in some kind of whatever thing. And in high school and university, those dreams were strengthened because they were talking about art salons and art cafes where famous artists would gather and think about stuff. And those things, I mean, those places don't exist. Those are romantic ideals. I don't know any artist who is living that type of lifestyle. And so you shouldn't really be bothered with that. You shouldn't be bothered if you're not part of some kind of art salon where the greatest thinkers of our time are coming together and making the world a better place. Those places don't exist and they are not necessary to find your art style or even become a successful artist in any way whatsoever. And so it's about time that you stop asking yourself why you didn't press the like button on this video yet. Just do it. Stop thinking about it. After you press the like button, there's one more thing that you have to understand, and that is that your art style is not permanent. It will change over time. Just like anything in this universe changes over time, so will your art style also change over time. Like everything in your life, you know, the movies that you liked 15 years ago are not the same movies that you like today. The girlfriend that you liked 15 years ago is probably not the same girlfriend that you like today. Everything changes, and so will your art style. Now, if the first step in finding your art style is copying other people and kind of inspiring yourself with the work of other people, then in the second step, you will have to kind of start drawing what you like yourself and kind of stepping away from other people. Now, in this process, in this second step, it's very important to not make it too complex, to not put too much pressure on yourself. And you will just draw whatever you like to draw. If you like architecture, you will draw architecture. If you like people, then draw people. If you don't like drawings, then don't draw at all. I know, for example, an artist who doesn't really like drawing and who liked collecting stuff a lot. And so she's just started collecting stuff and then turned those collections of random things into conceptual art pieces. And that's completely fine. You have to follow whatever seems right for you at that moment. I remember, for example, when I was, I think, 13 years old, something like that, 12, 13, I had this relationship with a girl and she liked to ride horses. And at a sudden moment, after 3 months, she broke up with me because she wanted to make more time to ride horses instead of spending the time with me. And I was kind of devastated by that. I really was. And what I did in the weeks after that, besides crying, was drawing horses. Drawing horses just was very therapeutic for me. And I know what looking back, it's super obvious what was happening there. It was a Freudian thing, a phallic desire that came from my insecurity about my micropenis. And so as a result, I needed to draw tiny little horse penises to compensate for that, especially when I compared my micropenis with the large penises that horses normally have. And now I have a collection of amazing, large, tiny horse penises. All joking aside, drawing horses was really therapeutic for me, and that's why I drew them. There was no other reason to it than that. And so yeah, one more thing that I have to say as well. And this probably or perhaps is the most important thing of them all. The number one reason that people don't find their art style or don't succeed with their art practice is because they quit. And I know that, especially if you're young, this sounds like some kind of stupid advice, but it really is. I remember being in my teens or early 20s, I listened to this type of advice and I was like, what? Like the best thing to succeed is just never quit. What a lousy form of advice is this really? But it's so important. It is so important. If you're in your teens or in your early 20s, you do not realize how hard it will be to not quit on your dreams, how hard it will be to not stop drawing, especially when your dreams are not going to be making money for you at that moment, and all the responsibilities that are coming, children, your job, your friends, your husband or girlfriend or whatever. There's going to be so much that you can't imagine yet at this moment that will make it so hard for you to just keep on going. 90% of the people that you know that are making art at this moment, that say to you that they will never stop making art, they will make art for their entire lives, they will not be making art anymore by the time they're 30. I can guarantee you that. And so that's how hard it is. Now, I know that a lot of people who are watching this channel are actually older, in their 20s, 30s, 40s, or even older than that. And so if you're older than 30, please write down in the comments that one thing that you quit on in your 20s because of some whatever reason, so that young people can read those comments and learn from that. We all have those moments. We all have those things that we quit on. I had that as well. And so just please write that down. And I know it's kind of self-serving. I mean, more comments is also going to be better for me. I know that, but it's also going to help a lot of people out. Another reason why not quitting is so important in finding your art style is because it will take a long time. You're not going to find your art style, your unique voice in the first couple of years of your practice. That's just not how it goes. And so in the beginning, in the first year, what I would recommend is actually just building the habit of drawing itself, building the habit of making art, and really just drawing whatever you like. Because every time you draw, you build the habit of drawing, which will then make it more likely that you draw more, which will then make it more likely that eventually you will find your art style. It's that simple. And so if I look at myself, for example, the first drawings that I made were just drawings of Pokemons. I traced them in the beginning. I was 8 or something. And then I started drawing from sight those Pokemons, and then it evolved from there. And that's just fine. Just draw whatever you like in the beginning. If you think drawing Pokemons or any type of fan art would help you establish your art style, establish a habit around drawing that hopefully results in having an art style, then I would consider watching my video, How to Sell Fan Art the Legal Way. Now, this video doesn't only cover sales aspects around selling fan art, it also covers basically everything you need to know about fan art in general. My name is Dries Ketels. Consider subscribing to my channel because I usually make videos to help artists understand the business side of the arts. And yeah, hope to see you again soon. Ciao, ciao.